The runaway heart Julian Blackwood's fingers tapped impatiently against the marble countertop of his penthouse kitchen. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the minimalist space that bore no signs of being truly lived in, despite its $15 million price tag. At 34, Julian had transformed Blackwood Innovations from a garage startup into a global tech empire valued at billions. The Wall Street Journal had dubbed him the digital Midas. Everything he touched turned to gold, everything except relationships. He checked his watch, custom-made, worth more than most cars, and frowned. Olivia was 15 minutes late, unusual for someone typically punctual to a fault. Their 6-month relationship had been unexpected. A chance meeting at a children's hospital fundraiser, where her passion for her work with special needs children had somehow penetrated his carefully constructed walls. She was beautiful, yes, with her warm brown eyes and gentle smile, but it was her unwavering dedication to helping others that had caught him off guard. The doorbell finally rang, and Julian's housekeeper showed Olivia in. Immediately, Julian sensed something was wrong. Her face was pale, her usually confident posture replaced by nervous energy. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely audible. 4 words that had never preceded anything good in Julian's experience. He gestured toward the living room's sleek leather furniture. But she remained standing. "I'm pregnant," Olivia said, reaching into her purse and pulling out what looked like a plastic stick with 2 pink lines. "I took 3 tests. They're all positive." Julian felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath him. A child? His mind raced through calculations and projections, none of which included fatherhood. Children were messy, unpredictable variables that couldn't be controlled with algorithms or business strategies. "Are you sure it's—" he began. Immediately regretting the implication, Olivia's expression hardened. "Yes, Julian. I'm sure it's yours. I haven't been with anyone else." He paced the room, muscle memory taking him to the bar where he poured himself 3 fingers of scotch despite the early hour. "This isn't what we planned, Olivia. I never wanted kids. My company is in the middle of the biggest acquisition in our history. The timing couldn't be worse." "Timing? You think I planned this?" Her voice rose slightly. "I came here because you deserve to know, and because I thought maybe, just maybe, there was more to us than convenient dinners and nights together." Julian downed his drink in one swallow, the expensive liquor burning a path to his stomach. "What do you want from me? Money? Because I can provide that, but don't expect me to play house. I'm not father material." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them away. "I didn't come for your money. I came because I foolishly thought you might actually care." She placed the pregnancy test on the counter between them, a small plastic bridge spanning an suddenly insurmountable chasm. "I'll handle this myself." "You can go back to your precious company." Something in Julian wanted to reach out, to stop her from walking away. But the part of him that had clawed his way up from nothing, the part that equated vulnerability with weakness, held him back. "That's probably best," he said, his voice cold and detached. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about arrangements." Olivia's laugh was hollow. "Don't bother. I don't want anything from you." She turned to leave, pausing at the door. "You know what's sad, Julian? For a moment, I actually thought I saw something in you worth loving. I was wrong." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Julian alone with his empire, his wealth, and a pregnancy test he couldn't bear to look at. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Move the Singapore meeting to today. We're flying out immediately." Running away was what Julian Blackwood did best. Silent strength 5 years passed like the seasons, each one bringing new challenges and unexpected joys to Olivia Winters's life. The small 3-bedroom house she'd purchased in a quiet suburb wasn't grand by any measure, but it was filled with the laughter and chaos that only a spirited 4-year-old boy could generate. "Noah, honey, please put your shoes on. Mommy's going to be late for work," Olivia called out as she packed a healthy lunch into a dinosaur-themed container. Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway, his dark hair tousled and his piercing blue eyes, so much like his father's, sparkling with mischief. "But Mom, I'm building a rocket ship. It needs 5 more minutes to reach the moon." Olivia couldn't help but smile. Her son's imagination was boundless, much like his energy. She knelt down to his level, gently brushing back a strand of hair from his forehead. How about your rocket takes a lunar parking break and we'll continue the mission after school? Noah considered this compromise with the seriousness only a child could muster before nodding solemnly. Deal, but we need more cardboard for the boosters. Noted. Commander Noah, she replied with a mock salute. As they drove to Little Explorer's daycare, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. After Julian's rejection, she'd thrown herself into her work at the children's hospital with renewed vigor. The pregnancy had been difficult, emotionally more than physically, but the moment Noah was placed in her arms, Olivia knew she would move mountains for this tiny human. She had never contacted Julian again, true to her word. In the beginning, she'd scoured business news for mentions of him, watching from afar as Blackwood Innovations expanded globally. Eventually, she stopped looking. There was no room in her heart for bitterness, while raising a child who deserved all the love and positivity she could provide. With the support of her parents and close friends, Olivia had managed to establish Healing Horizons, a pediatric therapy center serving underprivileged children. The work was demanding but deeply fulfilling. Her clients' families often struggled with medical bills and limited resources, and Olivia had made it her mission to ensure that financial constraints never prevented a child from receiving necessary care. Ms. Winters, good morning. Hannah, Noah's favorite teacher, greeted them at the daycare entrance. We're doing space exploration today, so Noah will be right in his element. He's already started his mission at home, Olivia laughed, giving Noah a goodbye hug. Be good, sweetheart. Remember Grandma's picking you up today because Mommy has the fundraiser? The one where you have to dress fancy? Noah asked, already distracted by the model solar system hanging from the classroom ceiling. That's the one. Sleep tight at Grandma's, and I'll see you tomorrow with pancakes. As she drove to Healing Horizons, Olivia mentally reviewed her schedule. The annual hospital fundraiser was tonight, the same event where she'd met Julian years ago. She had almost skipped it, but as a community partner providing services to many of the hospital's patients, her presence was important for networking and potential donors. Her assistant, Rebecca, was waiting with coffee when Olivia arrived. Morning, boss. Your 9 o'clock had to reschedule, but I moved your 3:30 to that slot instead. Oh, and the new sensory equipment arrived for the autism program. You're a lifesaver, Becca, Olivia said gratefully, taking the coffee. Any word from the Thompson family? James missed his appointment yesterday. Rebecca's expression softened. Mrs. Thompson called. James's father lost his job, and they're struggling with gas money to get here. I took the liberty of arranging transportation through our emergency fund. This was exactly why Olivia had created the center. No child should miss therapy because of circumstances beyond their control. She nodded approvingly. Perfect. Let's also check if they need help with groceries this week. The day flew by in a flurry of therapy sessions, administrative work, and preparations for an upcoming grant proposal. By evening, Olivia found herself rushing home to change for the fundraiser, wondering if she had the energy to smile and make small talk with wealthy potential donors. As she zipped up the simple but elegant navy blue dress she'd splurged on last year, Olivia studied her reflection. At 32, motherhood and career had added a confident glow to her features. The naive woman who had fallen for Julian Blackwood was gone, replaced by someone stronger, wiser, and fiercely independent. You've got this, she told her reflection, squaring her shoulders. For the kids. She had no idea that across town, Julian Blackwood was adjusting his tie in preparation for the same event, unaware that his life was about to change forever. Chance encounter. The Grand Wellington Hotel's ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the shimmer of designer gowns. Julian Blackwood moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting congratulations on Blackwood Innovations' recent breakthrough in medical technology. Their new non-invasive pediatric surgical robotics had revolutionized certain procedures, drastically reducing recovery times for children. Julian, there you are. Dorothy Hamilton, the hospital board chairwoman, approached with a glass of champagne. Your donation this year is extraordinary. The children's surgical ward will be renamed the Blackwood Pavilion. Julian offered a perfunctory smile. It's the least I could do. Business has been good. That was an understatement. The past 5 years had seen his company triple in value, cementing his status among the world's wealthiest individuals. On paper, Julian Blackwood had everything, except perhaps someone to share it with. Despite numerous opportunities, he'd kept relationships superficial since Olivia. "You must meet some of the children who will benefit from your generosity," Dorothy insisted, steering him toward a small stage being prepared for the evening's presentations. "We're honoring a very special young patient tonight." His case was quite remarkable. Julian nodded politely, though these emotional displays always made him uncomfortable. He'd written the check because it was good business and excellent PR, not because he felt particularly connected to the cause. The lights dimmed slightly as Dorothy took the microphone, introducing a pediatric oncologist who spoke about a young patient named Noah Winters, who had shown exceptional courage during a series of treatments for a rare blood disorder. Julian's attention drifted until a small figure walked onto the stage holding the doctor's hand. Something about the boy's confident stride caught his eye. The child couldn't be more than 5, with dark hair that fell across his forehead in a familiar way. "Noah was diagnosed last year," the doctor was saying, "but thanks to our new treatment protocols and his remarkable spirit, he's now in complete remission. Noah, would you like to say hello to everyone?" The boy stepped up to the microphone, standing on tiptoes to reach it. "Hi, I'm Noah. Thank you for helping kids like me get better." His clear, confident voice carried through the ballroom, followed by enthusiastic applause. Julian couldn't tear his eyes away. There was something hauntingly familiar about the child's features, the shape of his eyes, the set of his jaw. A cold realization began to creep up Julian's spine. As if sensing his scrutiny, the boy looked directly at Julian. Their eyes met, identical piercing blue eyes, and Julian felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "And of course, we must also recognize Noah's mother, Olivia Winters," the doctor continued, "who not only supported Noah through his treatments but also runs Healing Horizons, providing therapy services to many of our patients from underprivileged backgrounds." Julian's breath caught in his throat as Olivia stepped onto the stage. She was more beautiful than he remembered, with a quiet confidence that seemed to radiate from within. She smiled proudly at her son, their son, and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. The truth hit Julian with the force of a physical blow. Noah Winters was his child. The timing, the resemblance. There could be no doubt. The boy even had the same slight dimple in his left cheek that Julian saw every morning in the mirror. He stood frozen as the presentation concluded and the crowd dispersed for more mingling. His mind raced with calculations. Noah appeared to be 4, maybe 5 years old. Exactly the right age to have been conceived during his relationship with Olivia. When he finally managed to move, Julian found himself approaching the stage where Olivia was now kneeling, helping Noah straighten his little bow tie. Neither had noticed him yet. "Olivia," he said, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. She looked up, and the blood drained from her face. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. 5 years of absence suspended between them. "Hello, Julian," she finally managed, rising to her feet and instinctively drawing Noah closer to her side. "Is this—" Julian couldn't finish the sentence. His eyes fixed on the boy. Noah looked up at him curiously. "Your watch is cool," he said, pointing to Julian's wrist. "It has gears inside, right?" "I love machines," Julian swallowed hard. "Yes, it does. You can see the mechanics through the glass." Olivia's protective stance had not relaxed. "Noah, sweetheart, why don't you go find Dr. Patel? She promised to show you the model of the human heart, remember?" Once Noah had skipped away, still within Olivia's line of sight but out of earshot, she turned to Julian. "What are you doing here?" "I donated to the hospital's new surgical wing," he said automatically, then shook his head. "But that doesn't matter. Olivia, is he mine?" Her silence was confirmation enough. "Why didn't you tell me?" Julian demanded, keeping his voice low despite the emotions surging through him. Olivia's laugh was bitter. "Tell you? You made it abundantly clear you wanted nothing to do with us. You offered money and walked away. What was I supposed to do, Julian? Beg?" Before he could respond, Noah returned, tugging at Olivia's dress. "Mom, Dr. Patel says I can keep the stethoscope." "Can I listen to your heart?" Olivia's expression transformed instantly, softening into a loving smile. Of course, sweetie. Julian watched as Noah placed the stethoscope against Olivia's chest, his small face serious with concentration. I hear it. Boom, 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 boom! In that moment, Julian Blackwood, billionaire, tech genius, master of the business world, felt something crack open inside him. He had a son, a bright, brave, beautiful son who had faced a life-threatening illness without Julian even knowing he existed, and he had missed everything. Broken bridges. Julian sat in his car outside Healing Horizons, watching parents and children enter and exit the converted Victorian house that now served as Olivia's therapy center. After their chance encounter at the fundraiser 3 weeks ago, he had respected her request for time to process his sudden reappearance. Instead of pushing, he'd done what he did best: research. He'd learned everything about Olivia's professional accomplishments, about Noah's medical journey, about the center she had built from scratch. The more he discovered, the more painfully clear his absence became. While he'd been accumulating wealth and power, Olivia had been creating something far more valuable, a life of purpose and a family filled with love. His phone vibrated with a text message from Olivia. We're ready. Noah knows someone important wants to meet him. That's all for now. Julian took a deep breath and stepped out of his car, carrying a small gift bag. He'd spent hours deliberating over what to bring, finally settling on a beginner's robotics kit suitable for Noah's age. Not an extravagant gift, but hopefully one that would connect with the boy's interest in machines. The center's waiting room was cheerfully decorated with children's artwork and comfortable seating. A young receptionist greeted him with a smile. You must be Mr. Blackwood. Ms. Winters is expecting you in her office. Last door on the right. Julian nodded, his usual confidence deserting him with each step down the hallway. Through open doors, he glimpsed therapy sessions in progress, children working with specialists on speech, motor skills, and emotional regulation. The genuine care evident in each interaction was a stark contrast to the cutthroat corporate world he inhabited. He knocked softly on Olivia's door. Come in, she called, and Julian entered to find her sitting behind a modest desk while Noah played with building blocks on a colorful rug nearby. Julian, she acknowledged with a slight nod. Thank you for coming. Noah looked up curiously, his blue eyes, Julian's eyes, studying the newcomer. Are you the important person? He asked directly. Julian found himself kneeling to the boy's level. My name is Julian Blackwood. I knew your mom a long time ago? Before I was born? Noah asked, continuing to stack his blocks into an impressive tower. Yes, Julian answered, his throat tight. Before you were born? Olivia watched them carefully before addressing her son. Noah, remember how we talked about how some children have a mom and a dad, and some just have a mom or just a dad? Noah nodded. Like Tommy has 2 dads and no mom, and I just have you. That's right. Well, Julian is... Olivia hesitated, looking to Julian with a silent question in her eyes. I'm your father, Noah, Julian said, the words feeling strange yet right on his tongue. Noah's tower of blocks tumbled as his hand froze mid-placement. He looked from Julian to Olivia and back again. My dad? But Mom said my dad had important work and couldn't be with us. Julian winced at the diplomatic explanation Olivia had given their son. He deserved so much worse. That was true, Julian said carefully. I made a mistake. A big one. I didn't know how important being a father could be. But now you're here, Noah stated, more observation than question. Now I'm here, Julian confirmed. If that's okay with you and your mom. Noah considered this with surprising maturity for his age. Do you know how to build robots? Because I want to build a robot dog. Despite the tension, Julian smiled. I do, actually. I brought you something that might help with that. He offered the gift bag. Noah looked to Olivia for permission before accepting it. His eyes widened with delight as he pulled out the robotics kit. Mom, look! It has motors and everything. That's very thoughtful, Olivia said, her expression guarded despite her words. Why don't you look through it while I talk to Julian for a minute? We'll be just outside the door. Once they were in the hallway, Olivia's composed facade cracked slightly. I've spent 5 years protecting him, Julian. 5 years building a life where he doesn't feel the absence of a father. I won't let you waltz in now just to disappear again when it gets difficult or inconvenient. I'm not going anywhere, Julian said firmly. I know I don't deserve a place in his life, or yours, but I want to try, Olivia. I want to earn it. And how do you propose to do that? By buying him expensive gifts? Throwing money at the situation like you offered to do when I told you I was pregnant? Julian shook his head. No, I want to be present. Actually present. I've already cleared my schedule for the next month. No international travel, no late meetings. I'm ready to commit whatever time Noah will allow me. Olivia's skepticism was evident. You've built your entire life around your company. I don't believe you can change so fundamentally. I don't expect you to believe it, Julian replied. I expect you to watch me prove it. Their conversation was interrupted by Noah calling from the office. Mom, Julian, the robot moves! Olivia sighed. We'll figure this out step by step. You can see him twice a week for now, supervised. I won't introduce you as his father to others until we see how this goes. Thank you, Julian said sincerely. I know I don't deserve even this much. As they returned to the office where Noah was proudly demonstrating his new toy, Julian realized that for all his business acumen, he was completely unprepared for the complexity of fatherhood. But for the first time in his life, he was facing a challenge that money and power couldn't solve, and it was the only challenge that truly mattered. Family-forged autumn leaves swirled around Julian's feet as he waited outside Noah's school. 9 months had passed since that first awkward meeting at Healing Horizons. 9 months of gradual, careful steps toward building a relationship with his son. What had begun as twice-weekly supervised visits had evolved into regular outings, school pickups, and even occasional weekends at Julian's home, which now featured a bedroom decorated with space-themed everything. Noah's current obsession. Dad! Noah's voice rang out as he raced across the playground, backpack bouncing. The word still sent a jolt through Julian's heart every time he heard it. It had first happened 3 months ago, spontaneously during a science museum visit, and Julian had needed to excuse himself to the restroom to compose himself afterward. Hey, buddy, Julian said, accepting Noah's enthusiastic hug. How was school today? We learned about ecosystems. And Ms. Jefferson said my science project idea might win first place. Noah chattered excitedly as they walked to Julian's car. No longer the flashy sports car he once drove, but a sensible SUV with excellent safety ratings. That's fantastic. Want to stop by the library to research it more? Julian suggested, helping Noah buckle his seatbelt. Yes! And can we get ice cream after? If your mom says it's okay. We don't want to spoil dinner. Julian had learned this parenting lesson the hard way. After sending Noah home with a sugar high that had kept him awake past midnight, as they drove, Julian reflected on how drastically his life had changed. The man who once scheduled meetings down to the minute now found himself building Lego spaceships for hours, reading bedtime stories, and attending parent-teacher conferences. He'd delegated much of his daily operational responsibilities at Blackwood Innovations, promoting his longtime CFO to co-CEO and restructuring his role to allow for a more balanced life. The business. Press had speculated wildly about his strange new priorities, with some questioning his commitment to the company. Julian no longer cared what they thought. The metrics that mattered to him now couldn't be measured in stock prices or quarterly earnings. At the library, Julian watched Noah carefully select books about ecosystems, his small face serious with concentration. His son's intelligence and curiosity constantly amazed him. Most of all, Julian was humbled by Noah's capacity for forgiveness. The child had accepted Julian into his life with an openness that neither he nor Olivia had expected. Olivia, the most complicated piece of this new reality. Their relationship had evolved from tense co-parenting to something like friendship, though undercurrents of their past still surfaced occasionally. Julian had apologized countless times for his actions 5 years ago, but words seemed woefully inadequate against the magnitude of his mistake. After the library and a small ice cream cone, with Olivia's texted permission, Julian drove to Olivia's house for dinner, now a weekly tradition. As they pulled into the driveway, Noah unbuckled himself and raced to the door, letting himself in with his own key. Julian followed more slowly, carrying Noah's backpack and the library books. When he entered, the aroma of Olivia's lasagna, Noah's favorite, filled the warm kitchen. "Perfect timing," Olivia said, sliding the bubbling dish from the oven. "Noah, wash up, please." As their son darted to the bathroom, Julian placed the books on the counter. He's excited about his science project. Something about creating a miniature rainforest ecosystem in a terrarium, Olivia smiled. He's been talking about it all week. I've already warned him that no actual rainforest animals will be joining our household. Probably wise. Julian chuckled, then hesitated. Olivia, there's something I wanted to discuss with you. After dinner, when Noah's doing homework? She gave him a curious look but nodded. Later, while Noah was engrossed in his ecosystem research at the dining table, Julian and Olivia stepped onto the back porch, the evening air crisp with the promise of winter. I've been thinking about Noah's future, Julian began. Specifically his education. Olivia tensed slightly. Julian, we've discussed this. I don't want him at some elite private academy. He's happy at his school with his friends. I agree completely, Julian interrupted gently. That's not what I wanted to talk about. I was thinking about college. I'd like to set up a trust for him, not just for education, but for anything he might need or want to pursue in life. His medical treatments last year made me realize how quickly security can become uncertainty. Olivia's expression softened. That's thoughtful. But Noah and I manage fine on my income. I know you do, Julian assured her. This isn't about my ego or trying to buy my way into being a good father. It's about providing for him in ways that I should have been doing all along. He paused. And there's something else. I've decided to dedicate part of Blackwood Innovations to pediatric medical technology, focusing on making treatments more accessible to families who can't afford them. Olivia looked genuinely surprised. That's a significant shift for your company? It was inspired by your work at Healing Horizons, Julian admitted. And by what Noah went through. No child should lack medical care because of financial constraints. They stood in silence for a moment, watching through the window as Noah carefully arranged his books and notes, his small face serious with concentration. You've changed, Olivia said finally. I didn't think you could, but you have. I had to, Julian replied simply. The moment I saw him at that fundraiser, I knew my old life was over. And I don't miss it, Olivia. Not for a second. Something shifted in her expression, a softening, a lowering of the last defensive wall. We should head back inside before he wonders where we've gone. Julian nodded, but as they turned toward the door, Olivia paused. Noah has a field trip next Saturday to the Science Center. They need parent volunteers. I've already signed up, but they need more help. I'll be there, Julian said without hesitation. Olivia smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. I know you will. As they returned to the dining room, Noah looked up from his books. Can we build a terrarium this weekend? Like all three of us together? Julian glanced at Olivia, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Yes, Julian told his son. We can do it together. Later that night, as Julian drove home to his now less empty house, he thought about the word Noah had used. Together. For a man who had spent most of his life believing that success and power were the ultimate achievements, Julian Blackwood had finally discovered a profound truth. Family wasn't just an alternative kind of wealth. It was the only wealth that truly mattered. The billions in his bank accounts paled in comparison to the richness of Noah's laughter, the warmth of Olivia's gradual forgiveness, and the simple joy of building a terrarium on a weekend afternoon. Julian had once walked away from the greatest gift life had offered him. By some miracle he didn't deserve, he'd been given a second chance, and this time he wasn't going anywhere.